Welcome to Thrive Deeper, the podcast based on the Thrive Bible Reading Guide. This is the ongoing conversation about God's Word with Thrive's author, Dr. Matthew Jacoby, and your host, DJ Payne.
G'day and Happy New Year. Can you believe it? It's 2020. It's your humble host, DJ Payne. You're listening to Thrive Deeper, episode 83. 83 in 2020. Can you believe it? Now, I need you to grab your Bible, pick up that Bible if you've got it handy, or even open it up there, the app on your phone, and turn to Genesis chapter 32. That's where we're picking up the story today. Matthew and I sit down and we go through the next few chapters of Genesis. We get the stories about Jacob and his change to Israel, and then the stories of his children. We get the patterns and the programs that are going to be in our minds as we continue through the rest of the Bible. Really interesting stuff on today's episode. Some mysteries and some tragedies on this week's Thrive Deeper. It's 2020, Matt.
It is. We're in the future, aren't we?
Well, it's funny. Growing up, you know, us are child of the 70s. You know, we were born in the 70s, grew up through the 80s. We used to have a television show in Australia called Toward 2000. Yeah. Remember? Toward.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And it was mind-blowing thinking. 2000
was the future.
Yeah. Well, then, it was as we got closer to that date, the show then became Beyond 2000, you know, and these dates, you know, or the science fiction movies that we grew up, whether it was Blade Runner or anything, were set in these futuristic years like 2020, you know, things like that.
2001 Space Odyssey.
Exactly. We're here living in 2020. Does it feel like we've all of a sudden progressed into some sort of greater human hive mind or something?
We'll see. Let's see what happens this year.
Oh dear. We already talked last week about our bit of New Year's resolutions and things like that. Let's go on the other side. What are things that you're hoping, not so much a personal New Year's resolution, but in the year 2020, are there a couple of goals that you want to see happen for yourself and your ministry, your work and what you do there?
Looking forward to the the video series coming out that we've done based on my book, Deeper Places. So it's the Deeper Places is a book that explores the spirituality of the Psalms, and the video series are created for kind of small group discussion context. I mean, they can be used independently, but they're I think 7 or 8 sessions looking at different aspects of the spirituality of the Psalms. So really happy with how that's come out. There's a lot of depth there, a lot of things to think about. So that comes out in the first part of the year. Yep,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, maybe January, February.
Could be any second now. It could be any second now.
Yeah, keep a listen out for that.
There's new Sons of Korah work on the way.
Yeah, we've been recording away.
There's some interesting stuff around that. There's you've got a brand new year ahead of you at the church, One Hope Baptist Church, where you're the teaching pastor. Yeah.
Big academic year coming up too. For me, I'm teaching philosophy in first semester, and I love teaching philosophy and introducing a new course. MST on Christian worldview. Well, it's a course that's part of the Australian College of Theology kind of options.
Yes.
We're going to be teaching that for the first time for me, teaching that course.
Wow.
I've been studying up on worldview and some of the philosophy around worldview, and I am just loving it. I'm like a pig in mud, loving it. I was up till late last night reading a lot of the philosophy around worldview and fascinating. So I'm looking forward to this year. It's going to be a lot of great things.
And that crosses over a little bit into one of the projects that we have around here that we want to get done in 2020, and we will hopefully be launching it soon, is another podcast. We're going to be starting another podcast with the two of us, and this is Thrive Topics, where we grab a topic, One of them might be about Christian worldview. I can see that coming up.
Yeah,
definitely.
That would be a good topic. Yeah.
That we cover, and maybe covering questions, because when the questions come in, we have so many questions come in about what people are reading, and sometimes they spark entire new questions that don't have anything to do with the actual passage that we're reading, and that's another way that we can do that. So keep an eye out there for Thrive Topics, a brand new podcast, a whole new feed, RSS feed, a whole new way to subscribe to what we'll be talking about. That it won't be a weekly show like this one. We don't have that much time up our sleeves.
Just wondering about that.
But it'll be when we can fit in it there, and it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed, not so as academic, and in trying to be, going through a text. It's going to be a little bit more opinion for both of us to sort of share a little bit more about where we're at and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. I'm looking forward to bringing you that one in 2020. But right now, we're in the book of Genesis. We're up to chapter 32. And when we left off last week, Jacob had left his 14, 15 years that he had spent laboring for his father-in-law Laban, a descendant, a relative of his mother Rebecca, his grandfather Abraham, and he had left there with 2 wives, 2 handmaidens, and an umpteen kids and camels, goats, shepherds, slaves, servants, so many people coming with him, very, very wealthy, heading back towards his homeland.
Yeah, that's right. And interestingly, on the way in verse 1, there's this little line there that says, Jacob went on his way and the angels of God met him. Now, remember, where did we last see the angels going in that vision of going up and down the ladder from heaven? So he sees, these are the angels that he sees again. And the first time he saw the vision of the angels was on his way there, and now he's on his way back, and he sees these angels again. And this is going to be important because we're going to have a reappearance of an angel. He calls the place Mahanaim, which means 2 camps, because he's thinking there's our camp and then there's a camp of angels, like there's a host of angels. Yeah. So there's a sense of protection in that.
Yes.
Like he's going home. Remember, he fled in the first place because his brother Esau was threatening to kill him. Yeah. So now he's going back, and there is this angelic presence here, which is all about protection. So he sends messengers ahead to Esau just to test the waters. Yeah. Let's see. And he's thinking, surely it's been 20 years. Yeah. Surely he will have forgotten by now. I'll send messages ahead and, asking for, may I find favor in your eyes.
And the attitude of this, of the deceiver writing to the brother that he hasn't seen for all these years, and he writes, this is from your humble servant Jacob.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been living with Uncle Laban. I have been blessed. I've got so much wealth. I've sent these messengers. I hope to see you. He's really groveling, in these messages,
and testing the waters to see what his brother's attitude is. And of course, the messengers come back. And they say, we went to your brother Esau, and now he's coming to meet you with 400 men. Okay, so this isn't like an orchestra, or this isn't a welcome party. This is this is an army. He's coming to meet you with a small army. Yeah. So he's coming to wipe you out.
So the point there, straight away, that we it's almost like we get a little bit of a catch up, but we'll get a bit more of it. But obviously, Esau's done really well for himself in Edom as well. Yeah. I mean, he's leading a team of 400 men.
Yeah, that's right.
Towards him, and it's like, oh my goodness! You can see Jacob just go white,
exactly,
with fear, and his immediate reaction.
Well, it says in great fear and distress. Yeah, he divides up his people into 2 groups. He sends them in separate directions. Like, let's minimize the damage. Yep. If they go after that group, they won't go after. I mean, this is he's thinking here, I'm done for.
Yeah, this is it.
I'm absolutely done for. Sends gifts ahead in 2 lots. Yep. He's going to really see if he can placate his brother.
But we get this prayer. We get this prayer from Jacob, and it's amazing that he has he knows that God is with him. He knows that God has blessed him, but it's still the way that he talks to God is so desperate, so separate.
Well, this is his first recorded prayer, really.
Yeah.
He's absolutely desperate.
Yeah.
And so it says he prays, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac." There's this, this is the ancestral, the God who promised, revealed himself to Abraham, blessed Isaac. He now is connected. This is actually his moment of really connecting with God as in this sense. He was conscious of being blessed by God before, but now this is going to another level.
It is definitely progressing. We see a progression here because he has this great line there in verse 10, "I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant."
He acknowledges that.
He finally acknowledges it. He's saying, "Look, I'm coming back with with all of this success. And you promised me that I will treat you kindly. I will multiply your descendants." And he echoing the promises of Abraham. He's like, I have been promised that as well. This is my promises now, that I will have children as much as the sands of the seashore, et cetera, et cetera. And he then goes back to, after that impassioned plea, he then goes back to working out and dividing all the things he's going to...
That's when he sends the gifts ahead. And then he waits. And we get this very strange story. As he waits, he's pretty much on his own because he's split up the two groups.
Yep.
He's sent servants ahead with gifts. Now he's on his own.
Yep. Finally. And he's left, like he's buffered himself.
Yeah.
He's put himself way back here. He's sent everybody ahead.
He's the one.
Yep.
I mean, this is the point. He's the one that Esau is after. So he isolates himself.
Yeah.
And then we get this very significant story. And it's significant because this is where his name is. His change of name comes from. It actually comes from this.
And this is in verse 22 of chapter 32. We get the story of Jacob wrestling with God.
Yeah, that's right. So it says, so Jacob was left alone, and it simply says, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. And you think, what?
What?
What? Like what? Who is this? And it says, when the man could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip. So that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." So Jacob's holding on to this man. I mean, this is an almighty wrestling session. But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go until you bless me." So I think he knows. Remember, there's the two camps.
Yeah.
There's the angelic camp.
Yep.
And we've seen that already.
Yeah.
So the scene has been set.
Yep.
So he's conscious of the fact that one of these angels has come over. He knows that it's one of them.
Yeah.
And in this situation, they certainly do represent God, and he reflects on that later. So there's this sense, like the angel attacks him, and this is interesting. So why that? Why would it representing God, would he be attacked? Well, this is, in a sense, this is justice. Like he's a bad guy, right? So this angel comes and wrestles him, overpowers him. So that's important because he's really, it's God overpowering him. This is kind of judgment at work here. And yet Jacob will not let go until he gets blessed. Curse is what he should have got. That's what he deserves. Yeah. But he says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the man says, "What is your name?" And this is a really interesting moment here. What is your name?
Yeah.
Now, why would he ask that?
It's almost as God is asking, "Who are you?" Who are you?
Just let's remind, and this is about character.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah. Let's just be reminded of I will not let you go until you bless me. Yeah. Okay.
Well, who are you? If you want me to bless you, who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. So in a sense, it's like saying, bless. You're the deceiver. Yeah. Because the answer is, my name is Jacob, and Jacob means deceiver. So the reminder here is, you want me to bless you, but you're the deceiver. You don't deserve that. And then he says, that man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome.
Wow.
Now, this becomes a very, very important moment, because this is, Israel gets its identity from what? From the fact that Jacob wrestles this, is attacked, as it were, like judgment has come to him. And remember, this is in the context of the fact that judgment is on its way in the form of Esau and 400 men. Like, justice is on its way.
Yeah.
He's just about to get his just desserts, right?
Yeah.
So it's in this context that he wrestles with God. The angel says, "What's your name?" Deceiver, right? Well, this is why Esau's coming, because you're the deceiver. Yeah. So you deserve this. But because you have held on and not let go, your name, I'm going to change your name to Israel. And Israel really means one who struggles with God.
Yeah.
Now, this is important because it really sets up the way in which we receive or appropriate God's blessing. It's through prayer. It's like God is faithful, but it's through prayer that we actually access that faithfulness. Whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. God has promised salvation, but it comes to whoever calls on the name of the Lord. So we take hold of God. Jesus expresses this idea when he talks about the parable of the persistent widow, and that this widow that, in a sense, in these terms, would not let go. She holds on, and doesn't let go. Yeah. That kind of faith, and this is, in a sense, a picture of what faith is, this sense of I'm holding on to the God who has promised to bless me. Because remember, why would Jacob think that he should be blessed? Well, he has already. And God has already said to him, I'm going to bless you. So he's been attacked. He's getting justice, but he's saying, I really need that promised blessing right now. I could really do with that promised blessing, because judgment is coming to me.
On the way.
Yeah. And so this is enormously significant, because this is a watershed moment here where justice is coming down upon him, but God has made a promise of blessing. And how does this situation change? It's by Jacob actually taking hold of God in faith and saying, I need that blessing right here.
And the killer for me is that last bit when he pronounces his name Israel and says, you have faced God and men and you've won. Then Jacob says, well, please tell me your name. Who are you?
Yeah.
And then the man / God / angel, God's voice says, why do you want to know my name? And blesses him and goes. And this speaks so much to me about the character and the personality of the God we serve.
Yeah.
It is so mysterious and so bewildering and requires faith that, it's not like there's something so beautiful and crazy and deep about this entire this process. We've seen it with Abraham. We've experienced it with Abraham, what God called Abraham to do. We've seen the life of faith that Isaac had, and now we're experiencing it with Jacob. That God, it's not not as simple as ABC for to get close.
Well, God, remember. Again, we're in the context of the Pentateuch, and in the book of Exodus, the next book, God's going to appear to Moses, and he is going to reveal his name.
Yeah.
But we're not there. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Now, why does Jacob ask that? Is he wondering which God? Well, he should know which God it is. That there may be a bit of that going on, but it certainly anticipates the fact that more revelation is coming.
Yes.
But this right now is the most important thing. The name Israel comes from this, the one who takes hold of God, those who struggle with God. Now, being steeped in the Psalms, I just see this, which is in the heart of the Bible. The Psalms really exemplify what faith looks like. It's an enormously important book. It's enormously important because people in Old Testament times, and even right through New Testament times, most of the scripture that they knew was from the Psalms. It's the most quoted from book, probably alongside Isaiah in the New Testament. So when you look at the Psalms, you see this constant process of people taking hold of God and not letting go. It's a picture of what it means to wrestle with God. Yeah. And that actually is the identity of God's people. It's not that we're worthy. It's not that we're, because we were characterized, like Jacob was characterized in the same way as Satan is characterized. So we belong to that camp before. But because we have taken hold of God, we've been saved from that and brought over to a place of blessing. That's our identity. Our identity is as a people who are a people of faith. This is it's such a beautiful expression of that in this very strange story, but it's almost the stranger a story is sometimes, the more important it is. And that's the case with this one.
G'day family, it's DJ here, and thank you so much for all your support, your encouragement, your downloading of the episodes in 2019, and thank you for sticking with us as we start 2020. Now, we say the same thing every week. Head over to thrivetoday.net.au and you will be able to get in contact with us. Now, we want you to get in contact with us at this start of the new year because we are sitting down and planning the roadmap of where we're going in 2020 and beyond. But we'd love your input. We would love to hear how we can serve you and your spiritual walk better. You know what we're all about? We're about you thriving, your spiritual life thriving as you get deeper in the Word of God. So in light of that, if there's anything that Matthew and myself and the team behind Thrive can do to help you in your walk, please let us know. What do you want from the podcast? What can we be doing better to serve you? Please let us know. Head over to thrivetoday.net.au. We've got lots of different information there. We're always expanding what we've got on offer, and we've got some exciting plans for 2020. But as always, we'd love to hear from you. So as you begin 2020, as you begin this new year with so many exciting hopes and dreams, we hope that we can be part of all of that with you and your journey as you grow deeper in the Word and closer to our Father. All right, in light of that, let's get back into the episode this week. Get back into Genesis on Thrive Deeper. Thrive Deeper, DJ Payne and Matthew Jacoby with you, your guides, your trekkers as we trek through the Old Testament here, through this book of beginnings. And as we've just left, we're watching Jacob emerge out of this tent by himself. And I see a different Jacob, not the Jacob that went in, because out comes Israel. Out comes the man Israel. Yeah. He's got a new name. And not only that, he looks like he's been beaten. He is limping out of there. His hip is dislodged, and he looks like he's been aged quite a bit because he has just wrestled with God all night long.
And judgment is coming. I mean, in the form of Esau. This is the context of this wrestling with God. Judgment is on its way, and he wrestles with God and he holds on, and he contends for that blessing. God has promised to bless him, but he's now taken hold of that by faith. So now Esau turns up, and the amazing thing here is that he comes there with his with his 400 men, and it says in verse 4 here, but Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. There's no doubt that Esau was coming to wipe him out and everything and everyone with him. Yeah. But there's this remarkable change now in his attitude, and it's not just the gifts. I mean, the gifts would have perhaps been the occasion for a change of heart, but this is a supernatural change of heart.
Totally.
God has done this, and that's very clear, actually. I think that's the way that these bits sit together. It's very clear that God has done something amazing here.
You can't, I mean, as in a movie, like if you're watching this in the movie, this would be the ultimate M. Night Shyamalan trick ending, because Esau is running with the 400 men. He's running, Jacob.
He's running at him.
And Jacob, you can just see Jacob knowing he's bowing. He's bowing, ready for the knife, ready for the axe to come down. And you see Esau, his big brother, pick him up and just weeping on him.
And the language that's used there, he embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck. It mirrors that. The angel coming out and wrestling with him. It's like, the angel takes hold of him in and then there's a sense of judgment in that, but then he appeals to the promise and calls on, calls for the blessing. And now this is what he gets. And in a sense, Esau there sort of reflects that favor, the favor of God. He's not being attacked here. He's being embraced. So this is an amazing change here.
Yeah.
And of course, the important thing is here, another covenant principle that is activated by this, because Esau has now blessed Jacob.
Yes.
Well, what does the covenant say? It says, those who bless you, I will bless.
Yeah.
So there's a happy ending here for Esau as well. Like we think, well, Esau got ripped off of the blessing of the firstborn, right? But here, he actually gets it back.
Yes. Yeah.
He actually gets that blessing back. Remember how he weeps when his father said, well, I've got nothing left for you. Yeah. I've got nothing to give you now because I've given it all to Jacob. But actually, this is the nature of that blessing, is that it's not contained in one life. It gets passed on, and it gets passed on here to Esau when he blesses Jacob.
And we get the sense very clearly that Esau is already blessed. Esau's like, no, I don't need your gifts. I've been given plenty already.
That's right, yeah.
I've got plenty. But Jacob is persistent. No, take this.
Yeah.
Now there is my question to you here is, as they go on, Esau is wanting Jacob to come with him, and they're all going to go together. And Jacob, you can see, is very slyly saying, no. I've got young children here. We've got different things. You go ahead. I'll meet you later. And he's got this sense of saying, I don't want to come along. I'll meet you later on at Seir where you're going to go. And then, Esau's like, let me assign some of my best men to you. Jacob's like, no. I've been received warmly. We're at peace. That's all I need.
Yeah.
So Esau heads off, and Jacob doesn't end up meeting up with him.
No, he doesn't. Which is interesting, but see, Jacob wants to go back to his land where his mother and father, where his grandmother and grandfather are buried, so Jacob goes to Succoth and eventually Bethel and Shechem. So he goes back into the promised land. This is important that he's making this choice. He wants to go back into the promised land because where Esau is going is down south. It's actually a mountainous area between, if you're good with geography, the Gulf of Aqaba and the Dead Sea. It's actually in present day Jordan.
Okay.
So there's a mountainous region there, and it's actually where there's a very famous archaeological site called Petra, and Petra became the most prominent city in that area of Seir where Esau went. But initially that was the area because the Edomites then come from Esau. Esau's clan becomes the Edomites, and they inhabit that area now. But that's kind of out of that's to the east, and there's this constant sense that the east is kind of the land of lostness in a way. I mean, we clearly see a little further on when it talks about Esau's descendants that God is blessing Esau, but he's gone kind of to the southeast.
Yes.
Whereas Jacob, and this again speaks to the destiny of God's people, Jacob wants to go back to the promised land.
Yeah.
Because remember, God had just previously promised that land to him.
Yes.
So he's actually responding to that promise. That's why he doesn't go to Esau, because God had previously said to him, I'm going to give you this land. And so he's got, look, he could go with Esau. That might even be the safe thing.
Yes.
Because Esau's got an army, and there's safety in numbers.
Yep.
And there are some promises there. So it's not, maybe he's also a little mistrustful here.
Yeah.
Because this is just a little bit too good to be true.
And it is
true, though, because God has done it. But he's probably thinking this is a little bit too good to be true.
I also think he might have learned his lesson with God blessing him and Laban, the disgruntledness of the people around him. So he's looking to set up his own place. So he gets back to the land of Canaan. He goes to Shechem. He finds, a family, buys land for 100 pieces of silver, builds a altar to God. And he settles down, builds a house, and says, right, here we go. I'm going to establish myself here in the land of Shechem.
Yeah.
We get to 34. And we're going to finish with chapter 34 today.
Yeah.
This is
a weird one.
An insane story. This is one of my favorite stories growing up.
Seriously?
Dinah
and the Shechemites.
Yeah. I love.
You are just the biggest Bible.
As a young kid, it was never in any Bible story book. You don't get this one in Sunday school.
It's not. No,
you don't get this one in Sunday school. But when I read it for myself as a very young boy, I was enamored with this story. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. To make a very long story short, this is the story of the sister Dinah. So this is Leah's youngest daughter, Dinah. And Leah's daughter, Dinah, must take after, her Aunt Rachel, and she's a beautiful woman, in the line there. And they're living in this place. And the local prince, the son of Hamar the Hivite, seized her and raped her, but then he fell in love with her. Yeah. That is bizarre. Maybe we're told that in the wrong order. Maybe he had fallen in love with her and taken her there. And he said,
he decides he wants to marry her afterwards, so he goes. He wants to
do. Now again, these are godless people that they're living around. Yeah. Okay, so this is not a prescription of what is right, but he says to his father, "Please get me this young woman. I'm in love with her. I want to marry her." They then Jacob finds out about this. He's trying to make peace and everything like that. He makes some deals and everything, and trade deals, and wants to do some different stuff there. Please be kind to me and everything like that. But Jacob's sons were not happy about this at all. No. Right? They were indignant. This is Dinah's older brother.
Jacob's kind of prepared to come to the party, but the sons are thinking, no way, they are going to get revenge.
They're going to get revenge. This is like, you have done the wrong thing. Now, the only problem I have with this story is that Dinah we don't hear from her. She's a bit of a quiet character in this whole thing. But I get the sense that by the fact that we don't hear from her, she must be in cahoots with her brothers. I get that sense. I don't know. But Jacob is trying to wheel and deal, make peace with the people of the land. Meanwhile, the brothers, especially the sons, her immediately, blood brothers, the sons of Leah, are indignant. They are furious, and they come up with a scheme with the men of Shechem. Yeah. They're like, listen, we're all about it too. We, yes, with the daughter there, we understand the young man's position, but there's something that just separates you and us, and that's this, circumcision business. Yeah. You uncircumcised people, disgusting.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't even associate. Like, this is horrible. We can't even come to the party. But if you're willing, all the men in the village are willing to go through this ritual of circumcision, we could make something work.
Yeah, which they do.
Which amazingly these people do.
And then when they're in pain, 3 days later they come and attack them.
And not just attack them.
They slaughter every male in this town, and they carry everyone else off into slavery. and that's their revenge. I mean, it's just overkill.
Yep.
And if you read that and think, man, this is overkill. I mean, it was a terrible thing that was done, but this is like...
This is unbelievable. They slaughtered every male, including, the Hamer and his son, the rapist, who wanted to marry and do the right thing. They grab Dinah and say, we're saving you. We're taking you back.
Yeah.
And they've killed every male and taken all the plunder, the flocks, the herds, the donkeys. They looted all the wealth, plundered the houses, and then Simeon and Levi, who have obviously the leaders of the pack who've cooked up the whole thing. Again, Levi, one of the ones here. Jacob is devastated. Like, you have ruined me.
Yeah.
You've made me stink among all the people of the land.
Yep.
The Canaanites, the Perizzites. We are so few, but they will join forces and crush us. We're going to be wiped up.
So the question is, what is the purpose of this story? What is the meaning? And
Well, the final line from Simeon and Levi is, "Why would you let him treat our sister like a prostitute?"
Yeah, that's right.
So there's division. You can see division within the family already.
So let's look for clues, and I think this is a difficult one. This story is a difficult one, and there are slightly different interpretations. But we'll look for some clues here. The first clue to me is when Hamor, the king of the Hivites, says, please give this girl to my son. And in verse 9, he says, intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. Now, this kind of evokes all of the prohibitions in the law of Moses against intermarrying with the people of the land, the Hivites.
But we haven't got those laws yet.
No, we haven't got those laws, but remember, all of this is preemptive.
Yes, I'm just laying it out there so people know where
we haven't got those laws yet, but because I'm thinking this belongs to the Pentateuch, to this body, okay, and it's being all read together, and this, red lights go on here for an ancient reader of this story. Intermarry with us, give us your daughters, take your daughters for themselves. So that's the first thing, that they don't want to do that. But then the other clear thing in this story is the overkill of here. Now, that's the kind of strange bit about this, and it's not justified by the text. In fact, I think it's part of a general profile of the 12 tribes of Israel that is not a flattering profile. This is an origin story, a story about the origins of Israel that isn't glorifying, because most other origin stories in the ancient Near East, they glorified the people whose origins they were telling, okay? The interesting thing about Genesis is that it does the very opposite to that. It doesn't glorify their origins. It actually makes them look really bad. And even in the ancient world, this is overkill. There were ways of, even in those days, of making amends here. This is why Jacob is so angry here, because this is not the way things are done. Certainly, there were consequences in the law of Moses for rape.
Yes.
And it wasn't slaughtering a whole village.
No.
So again, they've gone against the law here. I mean, it's like they've done the right thing in that they're not willing to intermarry, and yet there's an overkill thing here as well. So it's not a flattering story, and I think that's part of the point.
Yeah. And there is a clear, we skipped over very quickly. We do get the men of Shechem are very calculating here. They're really weighing it up, because they present it to each other, they weigh it all together, and they say, listen, we can see that there's great profit amongst these guys, this new tribe that has come on down. We do this, we circumcise ourselves, though we will absorb them, and all of their wealth will become ours as well.
Yeah.
That's their plan. They want to amalgamate with these people. And not that it's justified what Simeon and Levi do and orchestrate here, but I don't know. It does. Yeah. The themes of intermarriage wrong this is a really big part of it.
I wonder too about this, whether the last line that you mentioned, verse 31, should we have treated our sister like a prostitute? I mean, prostitution is the way that is the metaphor that is used for the idolatry of Israel. You have prostituted yourselves to the nations among whom you are living. Okay, and so connect that picture with the bit about intermarriage. I think there's this sort of warning here. This is how the people of this land are going to treat you. This is how they're going to treat you. Now, is there also in their action, I wonder, is there also a kind of a preemption of the invasion of the land, which is a very harsh measure, but is a kind of a one-off act of God's judgment. It's like the flood, but it's in the land. And is this text perhaps preempting that? So there, is it saying? Because it is kind of overkill, but is the overkill actually again preempting the invasion of the land? Is this like a pre-invasion maybe? Yeah,
I get this.
Look, that raises more difficulties, but I want to. But again, a lot of those difficulties are caused by the fact that we don't live in the ancient world. Invasion of even the preemptive invasion was a very common feature of the ancient world, and it's like, but God's getting mixed up, and all this looks like God's really getting his hands dirty. I mean, we'll talk about this when we get to Exodus, because after the next thrive after Genesis is Exodus. That makes sense. But we do 2 Old Testament in a row. So I know this is difficult. We think God's getting his hands dirty here. But again, this is progressive revelation. I mean, the ancient world, a God who does not defeat my enemies is just I don't get that. It's not going to.
Yeah. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And this might, and going back to that, I still feel it today. I still feel it now at 47 years old. Yeah. The same feeling I had when I was 11 and reading this for the first time. The reason why I love this story was, it's an action story. For a kid, it's like, whoa, this is huge. But there was something that this answered within me, and it still appeals to me, of this cry for justice. This avenging. It's why it's why that Liam Neeson, the actor, has a career, because every film that he is, he's avenging his daughter, he's avenging his wife, he's avenging somebody that has been done wrong. It's that innate desire within me of justice that I want to see these 2 brothers, even go against their father's rigmarole and take vengeance on these perpetrators against their sister. Yeah. There's something within me that really
and that's that's an aspect. And so I guess I'm a little unsure. I'm a little unsure. Is this part of this unflattering portrait of the 12 tribes of Israel?
Definitely.
I think that's part of it, and there's a sense of although it's difficult for me to see the two, because I think there's a sense in which it's one or the other. Or is it actually? I mean, I'd be interested to know what you think. Or is this actually saying that they did, in a way, that they did the right thing? It was like this preemptive invasion act of judgment. I think it's probably the first thing. Yeah. But I'm just interested in the way that this seems to. There's a few clues in the text here that, with the reference to prostitution, the reference to intermarriage, which is all of the kind of justification that God gives for a preemptive strike in invading the land.
Yeah.
Is this preempting?
I reckon it's a little bit of both. Well, I think it's much more the former. I think this is an unflattering light. It's a warts and all, portrait of what is actually going on. But I think this, for the Jewish readers and for us, this is a really clear. Not God's sanction. We don't see that God's is sanctioning any of this.
No, that's right.
He's absent.
Completely absent from this narrative is any mention to God.
Exactly. So this is a really clear picture, probably the first clear picture it is the first clear picture in the Bible, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, about intermarrying.
Yeah.
Of a people who aren't the chosen people saying, we want to intermarry. Let's combine our forces.
Yeah.
This horrific thing happens. Maybe it's meant to trigger us in the future. As soon as we hear anything to do with intermarriage and coming together, we're meant to be shocked and go, oh my goodness, I remember what happened the first time this happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a book of patterns and foundations. I think this might be setting off.
There are lots of clues here. There are some things that remain unclear to me, but I think there are some really solid options there.
Yeah.
So it's not just a random story. The presence of all of those themes here is actually preempting some really major themes that are going to come in, Exodus and Joshua.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is it. We've wrapped up what we wanted to cover off in today. We're up to date with our readings, which is a great feeling as we get through the Thrive, daily readings there. All right, we're entering a brand new year, Matt. We're still heading through Genesis for the next, month or so. What do you want to keep us in mind? Give us a mindset that we can have, especially when you've been, doing research and everything behind the scenes about world views and everything like that. As we enter into this last part of Genesis in the last few weeks here of reading, what do we want to keep in mind?
Well, through all of the mess, and this is what has just come so clear to me again as I've read these stories, they are messy, but through all of the mess, God is faithful. You think this is a tangled mess of humanity.
Yeah.
And yet through that tangled mess, God doesn't cause the mess, but through that tangled mess, God brings about his perfect purpose. And that is so comforting to me, because when I feel my life is chaos, when I feel that things are a mess, I can have confidence. I can take hold of God and say, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. I can take hold of God in the confidence that through all of the mess, God's perfect purpose will prevail.
Oh boy, I feel like I've been on some sort of crazy journey there with the sons of Jacob. Oh my goodness. Did I confess too much saying it was one of my favourite stories as a young man? I don't know. I'm often confessing too much on these podcasts, but thank you so much for travelling with us as we go through this foundational book of Genesis. We're looking for patterns. We're looking for foundations about the way we think and relate to God in the rest of the Word. So this is why it's so important. That's why we're so excited to be going through this book. Now, make sure that you're subscribed. We've got the new edition coming out very soon as we get into Exodus from Genesis. Make sure your subscription's up to date. But other than that, we will see you over at thrivetoday.net.au. Make sure you head over there, shoot your questions to us, get in contact with us, let us know how you're doing. Let us know how your New Year's going and how we can serve you better in 2020. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Thrive Deeper. Matthew and DJ would love to hear your questions and comments about what you are reading in God's Word and in Thrive. The easiest way to do that is to head over to thrivetoday.net.au. Thrive Deeper is on Facebook. Just search and like Thrive Today page for all our latest news. Until next week, our prayer is that this podcast will inspire you to read God's Word and thrive.